Last financial year was characterised by market volatility and challenging macroeconomic conditions. The global economy was impacted as governments and central banks unwound the emergency fiscal and monetary policies adopted during the global pandemic, and as supply chains began to recover from the severe disruptions. Inflation re-emerged as a challenge for world economies and for policymakers. In this environment, Argo Investments again delivered a positive total return for shareholders, including record high, fully franked annual dividends. Argo's 2023 full-year profit of $271.7 million represents an increase of 8.2% over the previous year, excluding one-off non-cash income received during the prior reporting period. A number of companies in Argo's portfolio increased their dividends, which bolstered our income. However, these higher dividends were partially offset by lower dividends received from BHP and Rio Tinto Limited, reflecting weaker commodity prices, particularly for iron ore. In August, the board was pleased to declare fully franked final dividend of 18 cents per share. Together with Argo's interim dividend of 16.5 cents per share, annual fully franked dividends totaled 34.5 cents per share, an increase of 4.5%. Significantly, both the interim and final fully franked dividends for the 2023 financial year marked record highs for the company. We have now paid dividends every year since Argo was founded in 1946, and it's worth noting that only a handful of Australian listed companies can boast a record of delivering dividends to shareholders for 77 consecutive years. Furthermore, since the introduction of Australia's imputation system in 1987, every dividend has franking credits attached, and since 1995, all dividends have been fully franked. We are proud of this enviable track record and remain focused on providing our shareholders with sustainable and tax-effective fully franked dividends, together with capital growth. Over the 12 months to 30 September 2023, Argo's investment performance, as measured by net tangible assets or NTA return after management expenses and adjusted for the corporate tax we pay, that increase was 13.1%. This compares with the S&P ASX 200 accumulation index, which gained 13.5%. Just slightly ahead, but noting that this index makes no allowance for any costs. This slight underperformance relative to the index reflects investor sentiment pivoting back to growth-style investments. Argo's investment process favours more mature businesses that can maintain and grow their dividends. Taking a longer-term view, over the 3 financial years since the COVID pandemic, Argo has outperformed the index of 11.0% per annum, with Argo delivering 11.8% per annum. I'll now turn to director matters. I informed shareholders at last year's AGM that the board had developed a succession plan to refresh the board while maintaining an appropriate mix of skills, experience and diversity. Retirements and new appointments are being staggered over time to ensure our long-serving non-executive directors are not all retiring simultaneously. The first elements of the succession plan were implemented in the period leading up to last year's AGM, and you'll recall that Anne Brennan retired at the conclusion of last year's meeting. Since then, on 30 September 2023, Roger Davis retired from the board after 11 years of service, including as chairman of the Remuneration Committee. Roger joined Argo's board in 2012, bringing experience as a director of numerous ASX-listed companies and a strong background in financial services, including roles in executive banking and investment banking, and as chairman of the Bank of Queensland. As an active member of the board and applying his skills and insights, Roger helped guide Argo through the various market cycles and events, including the global pandemic. On behalf of the board, I'd like to thank Roger for his diligent contribution to Argo Investments. Following these retirements, 2 new directors have been appointed. Peter Warne was appointed as an independent non-executive director with effect from 1 November 2022. Peter is an experienced company director and has extensive knowledge in the financial services and investment banking sectors. His executive career included senior positions at Bankers Trust Australia, and amongst his director roles, he was the chairman of Macquarie Group. Melissa Holzberger was appointed as an independent non-executive director with effect from 1 October 2023. She is a commercial energy and resources lawyer with considerable experience in the international energy and resources sector. Melissa is an experienced director serving on various ASX-listed company boards and has previously had a number of other board positions on public, government and non-profit boards. I'm pleased to formally introduce Peter and Melissa to shareholders today. They're standing for election to the board and you'll hear from them each later in the meeting. We recently conducted an online survey of our shareholders. The purpose was to understand our shareholders and how we can improve our communications and engagement with them. We'd like to share the key findings of the survey with you today. Almost 2/3 of our respondents had been Argo shareholders for 10 years or more. 1/3 have been shareholders for 20 years or more. Diversified exposure to the Australian share market is the most important reason why shareholders hold Argo shares, followed by fully franked dividends. 95% of shareholders are happy with the current quantity of information provided, and emails are by far the most popular form of communication, with 80% of shareholders nominating emails as their preferred method of accessing information about the company. 80% of respondents rated our shareholder engagement as excellent or very good, and importantly, 97% of our shareholders would recommend Argo to other investors. Thank you to all those who completed the survey. We're pleased with the level of support for Argo among our shareholders. However, we do not see these results as a cause for complacency. We remain cognizant that Argo is owned by and managed for the benefit of our shareholders, and will continue to work hard to serve your interests. We welcome feedback at any time, and if you have any suggestions for Argo, then please be in touch. Contact details will be provided at the end of today's session. Australia's economy continues to be shaped largely by macroeconomic influences, most notably persistent high inflation. Like many central banks around the world, the Reserve Bank of Australia has aggressively raised interest rates in an effort to dampen demand and control price rises. To the surprise of many, Australia's economy remains remarkably resilient, as evidenced by robust employment figures and rising house prices. An economic soft landing does seem possible as the RBA navigates the narrow path of lowering inflation while not tipping the economy into recession. However, the overall state of the economy belies the growing financial pressures on many people due to sharp interest rate increases and the growing cost of everyday expenses. In turn, this is weighing heavily on consumer sentiment and spending. Although investor sentiment is indicating that the Australian and global economy should be able to avoid recession, there are risks to the outlook. It goes without saying that geopolitical tensions and risks are particularly heightened at present. As a result, growth may be subdued in the near to medium term and further share market volatility is likely. Against this backdrop, I want to remind and reassure shareholders that for more than 3/4 of a century, Argo has navigated through the varying conditions and different market cycles and disruptive events. We've done this through being disciplined and consistently applying our conservative long-term investment approach. Argo has no debt, has cash on hand, and has a portfolio of quality stocks, ensuring that we are well positioned in the current environment. I'd like to conclude my formal remarks today by thanking our Managing Director, Jason Beddow, and the Argo team for all their ongoing hard work. I'd also like to thank my fellow board members for their valuable contributions over the past year. And finally, on behalf of the board, I welcome our loyal shareholders, and to any new shareholders, welcome to Argo. I'll now call upon Jason Beddow to present his Managing Director's address. Thank you.